It being 5:30 on Monday, June 1st, I shall call the meeting to order. Ms. DeWolf,
Present.
Mr. Silly,
Present.
Ms. Newton,
Present.
Mr. Lyford.
Here.
Mr. Badger is also here. Just a little note that this is a meeting held in public. This is a Board of Selectmen's meeting. It is not a public meeting. So
I just did.
I will acknowledge people when it's appropriate. Thank you. I've got more people to add. The approval of minutes from 5/18/2020. Yes, Ms. DeWolf.
Page 1, line 45. I'd like to make the remark that this is correct. Vote, it was not reported correctly in the local paper.
What?
45. Vote was
3 to 2.
3 to 2.
2 nays.
Yes.
Then on page 3, line 5 and 6, we need to strike that because that is incorrect information. It says both openings can be appointed by the board, but the terms are only until the next election, March 2001, when the positions will be back on the ballot. That is not correct. According to RSA 669:73, and I quote, vacancies in the office of the trustee of the trust fund shall be filled by appointment made by the Board of Selectmen for the remainder of the unexpired term.
Okay.
Get that, Charlie?
No.
I just-
What? What? All right. Let's go back to page 1, line 45.
I only brought that up because, for clarity, it was misreported in the local paper.
Oh, so there's no change to the minutes.
No.
then. Okay. All right. I'll scratch that. All right. Page 3, line 5 and 6.
Yes.
So after the board has already received 3 applicants for the 2 positions,
Where it says
both openings can be appointed by the
the
board, but
board, but the terms,
are only until the next election.
that's incorrect.
Okay, so one of the 2.
So it, RSA 669:73, and I quote, vacancies in the office of trustee of the trust fund shall be filled by appointment made by the Board of Selectmen for the remainder of the unexpired term. Therefore, we will be appointing a 2-year and a 1-year appointment tonight. Those are my only corrections.
Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Do I hear a second?
Second that.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. Roll call vote. Kathleen DeWolf,
Aye.
Alan Silly,
Aye.
Francis Newton,
Aye.
Jamie Lyford,
Aye.
Eli Badger, aye. Moving on. Ashland Parks and Recreation, Town Beach, and Pickleball Courts. Miss Barney,
Yes. First of all, the beach. Again, I'm coming to you, asking you to let us open the beach with the lifeguards, with the safety stipulations that I had sent to you guys a couple weeks ago, as far as not having the snack shack open for food, having it be town residents, the campground, taxpayers, that's it. And I would have 2 lifeguards watching the water and 1 at the gate so that they can check and make sure that the people are residents. And we would rotate every 2 hours so that one person's not getting overwhelmed. Have the masks, gloves, and sanitizer at the snack shack for the person that's actually dealing with the public. What I would do is there's 3 bathrooms there. One of them is handicapped. I would have them all locked, but the person that is at the gate has the key. So, somebody comes up from the beach and needs to use the bathroom, they can get the key, use the handicap bathroom, and that way whoever's working there knows, okay, somebody came out, we have special stuff to spray it down, whatever, so that we are keeping it as clean as possible. And then one of the other bathrooms can just be for my lifeguards, so they, kind of have their own area. And so I'm just asking to have that made available to the town people. The governor has opened some beaches. Some of the beaches around us are open. There was a petition sent that was put online, not by myself, but by a town person who got over 200 signatures asking that the town beach be open with the rules. I feel like if we don't have somebody there, then it can basically be a free-for-all. There's nobody helping keep the distance. There's nobody there stopping any of the other rules that we enforce, like no smoking, no drinking, those type of rules. And since there is no summer camp, I am going to be able to be there. I don't want my lifeguards to have confrontation with anybody. If somebody is not doing what they're supposed to be doing, they're not distancing or whatever the rule, they ask them once. If they don't do what they're supposed to, they call me. I handle it. If I can't handle it, then I'll call the police. But I mean, we're going to be strict because that's what we have to be. But I feel like people in the town, the kids, we need something for them to be able to do.
Mr. Wolf,
First of all, it wouldn't be open just to taxpayers. Should be town residents, not just taxpayers.
Town residents, taxpayers, and people at the campground. Those 3
Right
things.
now, we're still under stay-at-home directive from the governor until June 15th. I am not aware of any surrounding towns beaches that have been opened.
Bristol is open the 15th. Meredith is open. Guilford is open.
15th, you said, that's not today.
No, I'm not opening it today, but I need to be able to get things in order. I'm asking that I can do that. We never open till the 2nd or 3rd week in June because that's usually when school gets out.
Have we had any issues so far with people accessing the beach? I know we had a couple of hot days, but now look at us. And a frost warning overnight. So there's probably not much interest in people using the beach.
I know the hot days there were people at the beach and they were doing well distancing.
Ms. Barney, what is the maximum capacity at that beach with social distancing?
I honestly don't know because it depends on the grouping. because you can have, there has to be 6 feet between them, but it can be a group of up to 10 people. So like a family of 8 people is going to take up so much room. And then 6 feet away, there can be a family of 2 people. Do you know what I mean?
Once again, I would like to know what the maximum capacity of that stretch of land is for the how many people that actually could be there.
You want me to figure out one person and then another 6 feet, another person? Is that what you want me to figure out?
You can tell me how many people you did last year per day.
I don't have that with me. It's at the Booster Club.
Okay. How are you going to handle the children interacting?
Children that come with their own family are going to have to stay with their own family. So like say I brought 2 kids, little kids, and you brought 2 little kids, your little kids can stay and play, but they can't interact with, that is the family has got to understand the 6 feet difference between those.
And you're going to enforce that.
Yes. Like I said, the lifeguards, the first thing they would do is they would speak to the adults to let them know. And if they get nowhere, then that's me. I don't want them to have confrontation with anybody.
Right. How old are the lifeguards?
3 of them are college students that I have certified right now. So 20-ish.
Okay.
And just so you know, I've talked to all the lifeguards and their parents to make sure they're okay with them working and what I have set up.
Okay. Anybody else? Any other Board of Selectmen want to speak?
I'd
Ms.
like
Newton?
to, Eli, please.
Miss Newton got her hand up first, Alan.
Okay, that's fine.
How are you going to monitor the situation once they're in the water? The beach is one thing, but how do you manage the situation once people get into the water?
Well, best we can. When it was the hot days and people were getting in the beach, they were staying separate. They had enough distance between them. I mean, I can't ask them to go out with a, ruler and measure how far they're apart and stuff like that. But, as far as we can see, no hands-on, no, any of that kind of stuff. We can make sure that none of that is happening and they're staying far enough away. I mean, I can make it as strict as you would like. I can set it up where, okay, we only have so many people coming on the beach. And after, whoever came there first, because I plan on having a sign in, so I know where they have to sign in, where they're from. We're going to check their IDs or whatever they bring, whether it be an electric bill, whatever, proving they're from Ashland. And, if somebody's there at 10 o'clock in the morning and they've been there all day, we need more people, you may have to leave. You could be there for a couple hours and somebody else could come in. I don't see it getting to that. That beach is never that packed. Signage available to let people know what their rules are. I can't hear you. Do you have, sorry.
Miss Newton?
Do you have ample signage available to post so that people understand the rules?
Well, I have them ready for when you guys, and I will get signs made. I want to make sure that's one of the things I would make sure I have done between now and when we open. I'm not asking to open tomorrow. Like 2nd or 3rd week would be fine. That'll give me enough time to get all the paperwork done for the lifeguards and to get signage in and anything else that needs to be done.
Mr. Silly,
Yes, we were talking about capacity. I think that's kind of an unknown, considering groups of 10. I'm going to throw this out there that we limit it to 150.
any comment on Mr. Silly's suggestion?
Seems like a high number.
I was actually going to go higher than that.
It's somewhat arbitrary. I think we need,
I agree, but I think we should have some kind of a number that we're going to be looking at. If it exceeds that, obviously, we're going to have to revisit it. But that's just where I'm at the moment.
It's one of the reasons why I asked what the average number of swimmers, beachgoers were this last year, was to see what we're actually having to talk about. If 100, if we can fit 100 with 6 feet between the groups, that's all well and fine, but I would think we would want to know how, as I said, how many groups are we could possibly put in there. Yes, Ms. Newton.
given that restaurants are under guidance to limit their capacity, I
Yes.
feel it's very reasonable to do the same with the beach. And while 50 may be arbitrary, 100 seems too much. So I think we need some sort of a target. You know, it doesn't matter what the final capacity of the beach is. You know, if you have 100 people there, even 6 feet apart, there's too much room for interaction. So I think we ought to look at, you know, maybe Alan's number is reasonable, but it is arbitrary.
Okay, just so you guys know, there are 23 campsites. So if all of them came down, just 2 people per site, that's almost 50 right there. That never happens, but I'm just telling you, if that did happen, then there wouldn't, if you made it 50, there wouldn't be room for residents. And yeah, parking is not gonna be, you're not gonna have 150 places to park for 150 people either.
Mr. Wolf.
Right, well, in the past, you have the people who enter the beach before 11, and then you have people that are there after 4. Those people are not gonna be monitored. They're gonna have to self-manage. And I'm sticking with my same thought process as 2 weeks ago. Expectations need to be adjusted at this time. This is not normal times. I think we should, I'll still go with my original thought that we keep the beach open, and we allow people to self-manage. Otherwise, this seems to be arbitrary. The numbers, you're gonna have people there before 11. You're gonna ask them to leave. There are gonna be people there after 4 that won't have lifeguards there. So, when did the beach close last year? Second week in August?
Somewhere around there when the kids went back to school.
That's right. So from that point on, we could have very hot days at the end of August. We've had very hot days in September. We won't have lifeguards. We won't have gatekeepers. People are going to have to self-manage. I don't know how you're going to possibly have somebody at the gate and then somebody cleaning the bathroom after every use. logistically, I just don't see how this is gonna happen.
When we have the beach open after the kids go back to school, there aren't as many children there because they went back to school. This is not necessarily, this is to keep our kids and our community safe. Lifeguards, they're saving lives. That's what they're there for. As far as the person at the snack shack, the way we're going to be able to wash the bathrooms is they are going to have to get a key. The next person can't go in until they come and get a key so we can wash it. As far as people being there before 11, I will go over there and say, you need to leave. You need to come up. I need to know where you're from. If we just let anybody go to the beach, we could have anybody from any town, any state being there, and none of the rules will be followed. There could be 300 people there. It's not going to happen, but if you want to talk about what could happen, then we might as well talk about that. And without lifeguards, it's just going to be a free-for-all.
Ms. Newton,
I hear you, Ann, and I'm actually quite torn because part of me thinks we should make it swim at your own risk. But the risk of leaving it as a free-for-all is to me somewhat higher. There also has to be an understanding that if we do this as an experiment, controlling the numbers, controlling the entrance, etc., that if it's unmanageable, then the beach will henceforth be closed, and people need to understand that. I am very reluctant to have it be open to anybody that just happens to wander by. Again, I'm torn. I don't know what the right answer is. Unfortunately, none of us know. This whole virus has taken us all kind of off guard, and considering the way we've had to change our lives. I'm also concerned that we have 19, 20-year-olds trying to regulate a crowd when we know that there's a lot of anger out there in some groups. I'm not saying anybody that comes to the beach will be, but we've seen it where people are defiant about masks and they're defiant about space. And I hate putting a 20-year-old or a 19-year-old, but if you're going to be there and are going to help manage that situation, I would feel better.
Absolutely. Every one of my employees has my cell phone number. If I'm not there that minute and I'm at the Booster Club, what is it? Minute and a half? It's not that long to get there. I mean,
More than a minute and a half.
okay, 2 minutes. But anyway, if we're going to be doing that, then I can get there, and it's going to be very stern. If they're not going to listen to me, it's not going to be, okay, you got to leave for the day. You're all done. We're trying to do this. I don't have a problem with doing that. People need to know that these are new rules and new times, and you've got to listen to them. If they're not going to listen to me and I have to get Will or one of the police officers to come, they're not going to be asked. They're going to be asked to not come back. That's cut and dry.
Mr. Wolf.
Last meeting, Mr. Badger asked for a comprehensive plan. You were throwing out information now. That is part of a comprehensive plan. It needs to be documented. So we have that. You're throwing out different scenarios where there will be different actions taken if people don't do certain things. This needs to be as a document, just not a verbal exchange with us at this meeting this way. Because I have to know if anybody asks me what the scenarios are. I don't know if you realize, but I personally got emails from people from out of town begging to let people who have been for the past 20 years using that beach, and it means so much to them. So we're getting pressure from people who don't live in town, and this makes it difficult on us too. And I'm with Fran. This is very, very difficult. But if you say, and I wish you had provided us with the information that other area beaches are going to open, because that would have helped in our decision making. That doesn't make us just the only beach open, that we would maybe attract people from outside and away coming to our beach. This is why a plan is so necessary.
I have my plan. I gave you my plan
Yes,
2
yes,
weeks
yes,
ago.
you did. Yes, you did. But tonight, you just presented us with how you were gonna manage different situations. That needs to be part of your written plan. Because I don't remember some of the things you just said, to be honest with you. I need that in front of me. I need it as a document. And Charlie needs it as a document, and there might be other select board members too, because people do ask us for information. And having a document that we have all have in front of us that we have approved makes our job as elected governing officials much easier too.
Well, I really can't put a bunch of rules into place unless you tell me I can open the beach with the rules that I put on here. As far as what's gonna happen, they break the rules, they don't come back. It's black and white. I can put that on paper. I'm fine with that.
I'm sorry, I would like that. I would appreciate that.
No problem.
Mr. Silly, any further?
I do have some comments, but it's just a question. The bottom line is, are we going to be open or not? And we're dancing all around that question.
Ms. Newton?
I think the answer to that question depends upon the answers we've gotten in our discussion, Alan. You know, without these questions answered, we really can't vote. So we are dancing around it, but for good reason.
I want to make it as safe as possible, and opening it up with lifeguards, I feel does that. I mean, if there are other rules, as far as like if you have numbers you want me to add to that, I don't have a problem doing that. If you say 100 people, I don't know. That's fine as well. I just think that if we do not have lifeguards there, it's pretty much going to be a free-for-all, and we can't guarantee anything. And if you, I don't know if, do you want to charge people the same as before, a season pass? That's something you guys would tell me, not something I would decide. I'm here trying to get the beach open with lifeguards. If you think, you know, the transfer station doesn't take fees right now, if you don't want the people taking money, then that's another thing. Totally up to you guys. I just want the safety measures in place that will make it so that my lifeguards can work and the people are safe with my lifeguards there.
Okay. Alan, you said 100 people,
I said 150.
150?
I think 150 is way too high.
Yeah.
Okay.
We haven't heard from Mr. Lyford.
Mr. Lyford?
I guess with the summer camp being canceled, what other daily duties or how many days a week does Ann normally work?
Are you asking me? I'm salary 20 hours a week.
Okay, and that 20 hours with the summer camp being canceled, are those 20 hours going to be you being at the beach? Or what's your plan for your 20 hours a week?
I don't feel that's what we're here talking about, but the campground is still open, and I still have other things that I can do with the ballpark and getting things done. I'm here to ask about the beach. If you'd like to talk to me about my personnel, I don't have a problem with doing that as well, but not right now.
Actually, it has to do with the beach, Ann, because if you work 20 hours a week and the beach is open 7 days a week from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., 20 hours doesn't give you a lot of time to go help here.
You're right, it doesn't. I'm on call in the summer, even when I have summer camp. I work 60 hours a week then.
I
I
guess I
just
was done.
told you what I am paid for. I'm salaried at part-time and it equals out to 20 hours a week.
Okay, and my concern is if you put 4 hours a day for 5 days and you're at your house and your lifeguards need you, it's more than a 2-minute ride to the beach. So that's my concern. We still have time where those 20-year-olds may be dealing with an aggressive 50-year-old.
Okay, actually, my house is maybe 500 feet from the beach, which is closer than the Booster Club. But I am on call just like I am for the campground. I have been over there many weekends dealing with stuff for the campground. Whenever anybody needs to get a hold of me, they can, whether it's campground or beach. And you can ask any of the lifeguards that I've had in the past or gatekeepers. That is not an issue. You want to make this personal, we can, but I'm not feeling comfortable with this right now.
Okay, Ann?
Yep.
I have your opening the beach from 2 weeks ago. Have you reviewed what the state has said for opening beaches?
I have the stay-at-home 2.0 that the governor did, and he is doing like the bigger beaches, and he is like half of the parking areas. So that's how he's limiting people on the beach. He's opening half the parking spaces, and he is also on those beaches, people can go in the water. They can't sunbathe, basically.
They cannot sunbathe, that's right.
Yes.
I would like to see the governor's rules incorporated with this, because they do talk about how to limit the number of people there. How many parking spaces do we have at the beach?
They're not lined.
About how many cars can get in there?
I honestly have no idea. Craig, do you have any idea when you put the stuff down, measured it out, how many you think could fit?
We did make that a little bit bigger. I would assume, let's see, there's probably 20 cars up front and 20 cars up back. So 40 cars total, probably you'd get in there.
So doing it, opening the beach the way that the governor would say, we could have 20 cars in there, which would limit the number of people. In your rules, and I would be willing to vote for opening the beach if you had a few more specifics. And yes, I would like to know how many people per day you did last year, so we can figure out some sort of maximum capacity.
Well, I know when I brought my summer camp kids there, Tuesdays and Thursdays, that was close to 40. And then maybe 20 more. I would say we never had more than 60, 65 people at the beach. And that still leaves a lot of room, because the grass area, you know, where all those trees are that are all taken out, those could be areas where people they don't necessarily have to be on the sand. You know, the grassy area. Because usually that's where my summer camp was there and we played games there and stuff. But that would be open.
Eli, can I speak?
Yes, Jamie, please do.
I would feel comfortable if it was 20 cars. If you take that 20 cars, say 5 per person, that's 100 max. So if we open the beach at 100 max per person, I'd feel comfortable with that.
Anybody want to weigh in on that?
It's a generous number, I think, based on what Ann has said. Based on experience, 100 is a generous number. 5 per car is a lot. Maybe we should look at more like 75, which is still generous if what Ann says is true.
Yes, because there won't be 40 kids there all at once.
Right.
Okay. Kathleen?
Okay.
So we still haven't, we got the numbers. Are we gonna have no passes this year? No money exchanged? Is this gonna be kind of like a gift to the town in order to provide this area?
I'd go along with that. Alan?
Sorry.
I'm caught in between here. I'm going to put a motion on the floor, so to speak. Motion to have the beach open without lifeguards. See where we go.
There has been a motion to open the beach without lifeguards. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Opening, I will discuss, opening the beach without lifeguards. It becomes a free-for-all. I don't think that we should participate in a free-for-all for that area. That's what I have to say. Is there any further discussion?
I'm not comfortable if people are there before 11. Is that the usual time lifeguards are on duty, 11 to 4?
I usually have them go over at 10 because they rake up the beach and stuff before and after their shift.
I'm not comfortable with people who are there being asked to leave. That's no different than people being there before, after the gates close. So you still have two windows of opportunity where people can access the beach because there's no gatekeeper. If that's what some people perceive as a free-for-all, that's their opinion. I know this has been the practice for many, many years. I've never heard any reports that it was a free-for-all. So I'm deeply, deeply conflicted about this whole topic. I want the beach open. I want people to manage themselves. I don't want staff who are, as you said, lifeguards. They are now having to police people, to check people's IDs, so to speak, to now become bathroom cleaners. This has become very, very complicated. And what happens if we have a cold summer? What happens if it rains 3 days or 4 days in a row? There's so many scenarios that can happen. But I don't want to deny people access to the beach, and I don't feel the people at the campgrounds have what's the word I'm looking for? They don't. you seem to think they have more precedence to be at the beach. So if somebody has a better idea, I'm open. I'm very open to it.
Miss Barney.
If there's cold days or rain days, I talk to the lifeguards in the morning. I tell them not to come if that's the case. So that's how we handle that any other time. As far as between those times are when children would more than likely be there, young adults without their parents. That's when they need the supervision to, not supervision to say, don't go by your friend, but to actually make sure they're safe in the water. That's why we pick those times. That's when kids are by themselves in a normal situation. Their parents are at work. You know, more than likely when parents get home, they're going to want their kids home. That's how it is. I mean, are there people there after? Absolutely. Do you want the gates locked before and after we get there? We've never done that before. I don't know what that would do.
Miss Newton.
The people that come in the morning are probably few and far between. I think the bulk of the attendees at the beach are between the hours where the lifeguard is on duty. I don't think it's unreasonable if the lifeguard arrives at 10 o'clock and there's somebody on the beach for this lifeguard, he or she, to check in on this person and find out if, you know, they are legitimate to be there, if they're residents or campers. I don't think that's a burden. And, you know, again, I'm torn. Part of me wants to close the beach altogether just to be safe, but I don't think that's safe anyway. Keeping it open is, without lifeguards is not safe. There is no good answer here. So, you know, to me, having some measure of oversight and regulation is the way to go.
Okay. Is there any more discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Wolf.
Okay.
What was that?
Oh, I thought you were looking for a vote.
Yes, I am.
I said nay.
I couldn't quite hear you.
Nay.
I got it this time.
Okay.
Mr. Silly.
Nay.
Ms. Newton.
I'm a little confused at this vote. Mr. Silly made a motion that he's now voting against.
I brought it up.
Let's make clear what our vote means. He made a motion to open the beach without lifeguards.
Yes, and he has said nay.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're voting, you know, on the motion. In that case, I'll say nay.
Mr. Lyford.
Nay.
And Mr. Badger says nay.
Good.
Is there another motion on this issue? Ms. Newton.
I'll make a motion that we open the beach with lifeguards with the provision that Anne is to provide additional details in her plan for us to take a look at, incorporating stay at home too, et cetera. And that we limit the number of attendees at the beach to no more than 75.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Mr. Silly seconds. Any discussion? Ms. DeWolf.
June 15th, when this last extension expires, will be our meeting.
Yes.
Well, we probably could fine tune any other scenarios or plan on our June 15th meeting.
Okay. Mr. Lyford? Any discussion?
Nope.
Mr. Silly, any discussion?
No.
Once again, I'm going to say we have to have, shall we say, a better opening plan than what I see before me. I think that we've discussed the elements that I feel should be in it. It's up to the rest of the board. Yes, Ms. Newton.
I would suggest that Ann write this as soon as possible and that it gets circulated amongst the select board and we make comments. We can't reply to all, just a reminder, but make comments of things that perhaps are left out or that aren't clear, so that, you know, we have a date for opening and we assume by the time she comes back to us on the 15th, this has all been taken care of. And we didn't set a date for the opening, but that we need to discuss that too.
Ms. DeWolf.
And I know, I realize this impacts the lifeguards, but you probably should have a frank discussion with them that this is still in flux because we have to follow the directives of the governor. And they probably will have employment, but it could be increased or reduced. We don't know. Everything is still in flux.
Okay.
So I would suggest that Ann have a frank conversation with her employees, that on June 15th, things, depending on the status in the state, we might be discussing something different.
Okay, so if you guys take a vote to open the beach with lifeguards tonight, saying, you know, I'll get something in writing to you, I'll make sure you have it this week with, I'll add the number of people, I will add, you know, the lifeguards are gonna talk to people once and then it's all up to me. I will put that all in there, but I can't go to my lifeguards and say, on the 15th, they're gonna tell me whether we can open when I'm gonna have to get their paperwork done. Because you guys all have to get that stuff signed and stuff. I have to get paperwork and stuff for them to be employed.
Aren't they returning employees? Are these lifeguards?
3 of them, yes.
Wouldn't their paperwork already be in place?
Well, they'll have new paperwork because they'll have pay raises. So that would have to be done.
I was gonna say,
We
You
can't
wanna
keep them in flux forever.
you want to add a date to your motion, Fran? 'Cause right now-
Let me discuss this with Ann. I think we should add a date to it.
Motion.
If we made it, say the 3rd week of June, is that satisfactory for you? And that will give us that last meeting to tweak things. Now, we're going into this with the understanding that it will be open and that you can hire the lifeguards. What Kathleen is referring to is if all of a sudden, you know, we get an influx of cases and the governor has to shut things down, or, you know, anything like that, because again, this is all an experiment.
Right.
So if we said the 3rd week of June, I need to look at a calendar to get an exact date.
The 15th is a Monday, the 3rd.
Yeah.
So,
So
Okay,
that
that's-
Wednesday or Saturday or something like that. Want to have a final discussion before it's open, but I'm
That would be the
going into
15th.
this with the assumption that we are going to open the beach with lifeguards and they will have.
Kathleen. Yes,
okay.
Kathleen.
June 20th is a Saturday, and it's the first day of summer.
Okay.
21st is Father's Day.
In that case, I will add the 20th of June to my motion.
Okay. And if I can get like the list of stuff to you guys this week, is there any way possible that we can get them okayed before that the date of the 15th, so that I can get signs printed up? Because I can't do it between the 15th and the 20th.
Again, I'm assuming that we're going into this with the assumption that we're moving forward. The meeting on the 15th is just to fine tune anything.
Right, but what I'm saying is if I get, you guys want me to get stuff in writing for you. And if I get that all in writing and you guys look it over and everything's okay, do we have to wait till the 15th before I can get signs made?
I don't think you need to wait to get the signs made. I think, again, we might tweak the rules a little bit. The signs should be
Social
obvious.
distancing and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
they should be obvious right now. I'm talking about the written plan, the fine tuning of the written plan.
Okay.
Mr. Smith, will you read back the motion?
Fran made the motion to open the June 20th, open the beach June 20th with lifeguards, with Parks and Rec Director to provide further plans about opening and a max attendees to be 75. Sound about right?
Sounds about right.
June 20th.
Do I hear any, is there any more discussion on this? Hearing none. Mr. Wolf,
Aye.
Mr. Silly,
Aye.
Ms. Newton,
Aye.
Mr. Lyford,
Aye.
Mr. Badger says aye. Motion carries. Moving on.
I have one more motion, Eli, please.
Oh, yes. Mr. Silly,
I'm sorry.
Mr. Silly,
I'm going to make a motion to open the Ashland Beach for residents and campground only.
do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Do I hear any discussion?
Is that taxpayers too? There's a difference.
Yes, I think it should be taxpayers as well.
That's fine.
Mhm.
I'll go along with that.
Okay, you'll amend your motion. You'll amend your second?
Yes, I will.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none. We'll start with Mr. Lyford.
Aye.
Ms. Newton,
Aye.
Mr. Silly,
Aye.
Ms. DeWolf,
Aye.
Mr. Badger says aye. Motion carries. Moving on.
Did we decide whether it's going to be,
How are we going to dictate who's a taxpayer or not?
they have to show their tax bill?
I mean, when earlier we were waiving collecting the permit fee.
We didn't vote on that.
You're gonna card people at the beach, Ann?
Yes. They're gonna have to prove they're a resident, either, I don't know, electric bill, that'll show they live in town. And if they're a taxpayer, they're gonna have to show us tax bill or something, or a license, something that says Ashland.
All right, you're gonna have to put this in your plan,
It is.
No,
Okay.
it just seems that
That's what the person at the gate is for.
Okay.
okay.
It's okay to move on now?
We didn't decide whether we were still going to have fees involved. Or we would, in light of the situation, it would be our gift to our gift.
I think you increase the risk of contact if you're taking money. I hate to give it away, but given the safety concerns it's probably better to waive it for the time being.
Because the only places they can buy a pass would be at the town office or at the beach. Am I correct, Ann?
Yes.
It's just it's a thought. Maybe we can revisit that on the 15th.
We can do that.
You might not want to revisit that on the 15th
What's
Okay.
that?
because people are going to come to the town office.
Wanting to buy.
Yeah.
We should make a decision now.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, if you're going to waive the fee, I'd say let's just waive it now.
I earlier said that we perhaps should waive the fee.
Want to make
I'll
that
make that
motion?
motion.
Uh,
Mr. Becker?
Jamie will make the motion to waive the beach fee.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion
For 2020 only.
for 2020 only?
Correct.
We'll start with Mr. Lyford then.
Aye.
Ms. Newton,
Aye.
Mr. Silly,
Aye.
Mr. Wolf,
Aye.
Mr. Badger says aye. Okay, can we move on now?
Yes.
Okay. Ashland Public Body Appointment Interviews. Trustees of Trust Fund, we have Walter Durack, Robert Letourneau, and David Toth to interview.
Chairman Badger, Ian Barney had one other item to discuss with the board.
Oh, okay, yes, pickleball.
Yes. So as everybody knows, we've got the tennis courts, basketball courts all redone. They look absolutely amazing. Had many people saying how great they look, and many people have been using them. I have got some questions about pickleball, which I didn't know much about before. I had to look it up, and it's a game that's played kind of like tennis, but not really. They don't use the same nets. They're not the same height. Talking about getting pickleball put at the Ashland field, some people have sent emails to Mr. Lyford saying that they would like the lines put on the tennis courts. I've talked to people and got emails from the people who actually play tennis, and the lines, if you put them on the tennis courts, interfere with, it adds more lines and it makes it confusing. The nets would have to be lowered and then raised back up afterwards. So that's going to put wear and tear on my nets. So they're not going to last as long. I do understand people like pickleball, and I want to solve this problem. So what I am asking is if you will vote to let me put pickleball down on the area where ice skating goes on in the winter, the blacktop over there. It's not used for anything. Kids drive bikes on it, but the blacktop is there. I talked to Sean from the guy that did the tennis. We already paid for the lines in hopes that we'd be able to put them on, because if I paid for it with the same time that we did basketball and tennis courts, it was only $150 to have them put on. And he said he could do it over there. That way it won't interfere with the tennis courts at all. And it actually it's far enough away, so we don't have to worry about the social distancing for this year. So basically tennis stays beautiful like it is, and pickleball can go on the other court, other blacktop.
Is it played
I
with a
agree
net,
with
and do
that.
we need to buy a net?
It is played with a net, and all the people that I've talked to, it's a removable net, and most of them have their own. They bring it with them with their rackets, and they just put it out. There's places in you know, Romney, where they do the same thing. I guess they have little tournaments. I don't know. But they said they have their own stuff and they would bring it. We would just basically be painting lines for them over there instead of on the tennis courts.
My question, Ann, are these primarily Ashland users?
Sorry.
Are these Ashland users or are these out of town?
You know, all the emails were forwarded to me from Jamie, so I don't know. I don't know the people.
I think it's a mixture, Eli.
Yes, Mr. Lyford.
I think it's a mixture of residents and non-residents. But I agree with the ice rink, and then the two are separate.
Who actually paid to have the ice rink put in?
Fire department.
Was it the association?
That is correct.
Was there any limitation on what they did? What he could
I talked to Craig because he's on the fire department, and he said that he didn't feel there would be a problem, and that they actually were kind of looking, so maybe that the park and rec department would take over the upkeep of that. So if we did the court and, you know, kept it sealed and stuff along when I do the others, then they would just flood it in the winter.
Mr. Wolf?
Isn't that in the right of way? Isn't
Yes.
this an area that we share with, is it Freudenberg? And they allowed it? You're shaking your head, Ann, no. I believe that's that's the right of way to the back lot.
I can speak to that if you want, Eli.
Yes, Mr. Moore.
That, I don't know, back in, I'm guessing now 2009 or so, we got permission from the landowners along with the selectmen at the time to put the skating rink in. And because it's not a permanent structure, like an example would be a building, and it's still accessible. And that, you're right, Kathleen, that is the right of way down to Mill Pond. Everybody agreed, even the owners of that land behind there. So we were able to put it there, and it's all, whether it's documented or not, but I'm guessing it was 2009, if I remember correctly. And I think in 2014 or 15, we asked that the town take over the maintenance of the skating rink, because our funds were limited at the time, and we did a final crack seal on it, and sealed all the rink up, and we wanted the town to take it over that time. And I think if you look back in the records, the town accepted to take the maintenance over on that skating rink as well. But I can't give you the exact dates. I'm sorry about that. But
Okay. How does that affect? Yes, Kathleen.
Fran was on the board in 2014. Maybe she can recall. I'm not comfortable without any documentation to expand any use in that area. Again, I didn't even know about pickleball. I had to look it up. I do not know anybody that plays pickleball. If it appears, the one email that I received, there are surrounding towns that have areas, courts, I guess you call them, to play pickleball. There wouldn't be lit, so it wouldn't be used at night. It would only be for daytime. And I think we need to have the documentation in front of us, how this was accepted by the board, who has oversight of it before we decide to expand the use of the skating rink.
Yes, Mr. Newton.
I hear what you're saying, and we probably should get some documentation. On the other hand, painting lines on it with no permanent structures doesn't really change its intermittent use, and I can't see that there would be any issue vis-a-vis the right-of-way. if we crack seal it, we've been doing that. Painting a few lines doesn't really change the structure. If people can use it in the winter, why not in the summer? I don't know about pickleball either, but I keep hearing more and more about it.
Mr. Lyford?
I think Ann said it pretty well, and I agree with her, and I don't see any issue with putting the lines on the pavement. The nets are all temporary. They bring them with them, and they take them with them, so there's not going to be any permanent structures.
Okay, Mr. Silly?
I have no problem with this issue.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Wolf?
Once again, I would like the documentation, if it happened in 2014, how this was now under the now part of the away. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm getting kind of muddled here. That if the Firemen's Association asked the town, the governing board, to take over the skating rink, and now it will be under Ann or Department of Parks and Recs to maintain it. I think we should have this before we do anything else, have that information in front of us. Just for clarity, just for once 5, 6, 10 years down the road, when pickleball is no longer being played, that we have changed. Everybody refers to that as the skating rink. And now if we're going to expand the use to include something else, I think we should have that documented. People should know I'm a stickler for documentation, so we don't have any confusion as the board changes and as the use of property changes over the years.
Okay. In light of what Mr. Wolf has said, what is your pleasure, board? Mr. Wolf wants documentation that the town was supposed to take it over. Yes, Ms. Barney.
I just want it known that the reason I brought this forward was because it was brought to me that they wanted to have the pickleball lines put on the tennis court.
Yes.
And I was against that because of the new tennis courts, and I don't want those to be muddied up, the lines, and to make look too busy. So that is why I tried to come up with a different location for it. If for some reason you decide not to put them over there, whether we can't for a right of way or whatever, my goal is to make sure they're not put on the tennis court.
I would totally agree with that.
Mr. Wolf.
Ian was trying to find a compromise, so thank you for that. Yes, I was very confused why these would have been, people thought these would go on the tennis court. It's the whole point of tennis, how you make your points is because of where the ball hits the court within the certain lines. To me, it was a no-brainer that we have a brand new court with brand new lines. It remains a tennis court. Once again, I want to make it clear who has oversight of this area. As long as Ann is Director of Parks and Rec, she should know exactly what she can or cannot do over in that area. That's all I'm looking for, that we would need minutes where this at the select board meeting, and if we put it off into our next meeting, I don't see where that would be detrimental. So that's my final discussion on this.
Yes, Mr. Silly.
Can we move the question, please?
Okay. Who's made a motion?
Yeah, I don't have a motion.
I would suggest, based on what Kathleen has said, that we we revisit this in 2 weeks, and in the meantime, if, you know, we can collect the appropriate documentation, would be in a better position to make a decision. I don't think the urgency is the same as it was with the beach.
I agree with Fran.
Mr. Lightfoot? So, since the question has been moved, there is no motion. So far, the consensus of 2 of our members is that we wait until put it off until the 15th. Until we get the proper documentation, until we get the documentation.
We have to do this by motion. I think we could do this by consensus.
The consensus, Mike, and I would go for putting this off until the 15th to make sure that we have that we can do this on the ice rink. Jamie?
That's fine.
Alan?
I think it can be done now.
Well, make a motion.
I'm not going to.
The consensus is that we wait until the 15th.
Okay.
Moving on. Finally.
Question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
How many people are online for this meeting?
It says that there are 15 people here.
All right, thank you, because I do not have that on my screen. Thank you.
Okay. Now to the appointments. We have 3 people who have volunteered to be on the trustees of the trust funds. We have 2 positions. We'll take them in the way they are on the agenda. Mr. Durack. Mr. Wolf. Hold on, I'm sorry.
Remind the applicants, we have a 2-year position and a 1-year position. So they should indicate what they're interested in.
Mr. Durack, did you hear Mr. Wolf?
I did, sir.
Okay. Which position are you interested in? And tell us about yourself.
I'm interested in the 2-year position. I've lived in Ashland for 10.5 years. I work for Plymouth State University full-time as a facilities project manager. I'm an avid outdoorsman, and I've been involved in volunteering in town for about 5 years now.
Okay. Has everybody read Mr. Durack's CV?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have any questions for Mr. Durack? Yes, Mr. Wolf.
I have personally worked with Walter. He was the chairman of the Conservation Commission during a very important and contentious time in Ashland when Northern Pass was a project that was going to come through the town. We had, at the time, 3 members of the Conservation Commission, and then we were joined by the 4th. It was the Durack, it was former Selectman Harold Lamos, me, and then Amanda Loudjoy. Since we're the only ones with the statutory duty to remark and forward to DES our comments on this. This group of 3 and then 4, we got our work done. So I'm very aware Walter's diligence in working, his openness to transparency, the understanding of 91A. He understands how municipal government. He has served on the budget committee. He served on the, TAC committee. And as I said, when we appointed the Scribners, what I look for in these candidates is prior municipal experience. They have expressed increased transparency in improving relationships and communication with other boards and committees. And this is very important to me in appointing a applicant.
Okay. Anybody else have anything to ask Mr. Durak? Hearing none, let's move on to Mr. Letourneau. Welcome, Bob.
Good afternoon. And good evening, I should say, at this
Good
point.
evening.
Can you see me?
I can see you.
Okay, all right. I didn't know if you could see me or not. Yes, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to the board. Not used to doing a lot of video conferencing, so I'd like to do it in person.
Welcome
But
to the club.
here we are. Here we are. So I purchased my property here in Ashland in 1995. We've been here ever since. I have served 14 years in the state legislature, 8 years in the House, and 6 years in the Senate. I chaired the Transportation Committee while I was in the Senate for all 6 years under both administrations. I still serve currently on 3 boards in the state level, and that's my experience in government. Other than that, my hobbies are photography, which Ashland provides me with an excellent opportunity for beautiful areas to look at and take photographs of. And I like outdoor sports. That's my personal. So I'm open to any questions that the selectmen may have. I'm here to answer any questions. I
Inside.
think Kathleen has her hand up.
Yes, Kathleen.
So you have not volunteered at a municipal level?
No, not necessarily. I have served on, when in my former town of Derry, I was on the cable committee for a number of years, and was when my last segment on that, I was the chairman of that particular committee. So yes, while we didn't have selectmen in Derry, we had council members. It's still a matter of dealing with local ordinances and local control.
I asked because you really didn't provide very much on your application for me to make a decision on.
I apologize for the briefness of that. I thought it was some kind of emergency to get that in, and I had other things I was doing that day. I apologize for the poor way I made out that application. I should have provided you with a resume.
He didn't state which position he's interested in.
I'm willing to take whatever position you folks would be willing to offer me.
Okay. Do we have any other questions for Mr. Letourneau? Mr. Toth, you're up.
Hello.
Hello. At the start of this, I do want to say that two of us on the Board of Selectmen have actually worked with Mr. Toth before. When we were on the Water and Sewer Commission. So
I will say that I'm interested in the one-year position. My background is that I have a master's degree in English. I was a community college English professor. Also served in the military on submarines, and am a Vietnam veteran. Served in many positions in the town, including community garden, budget committee, CIP, water and sewer. The chair of the ZBA currently. I'm an LRPC commissioner. I was on the Regional Transportation and Advisory Commission. And I've been on a number of grant committees in the town. I'm really interested in applying for this position because I want to improve the transparency, improve communication with the Board of Selectmen and other boards. I also think that probably the record keeping needs to be updated. I want to improve the relationship certainly with the library trustees. I think I have the management, financial, communication skills, computer skills required to serve as a town trustee. And I have a long list of accomplishments, including developing and implementing the community garden. I was on the initial capital improvement planning commission and developed the spreadsheets that we use to analyze the town's needs. The town still uses a number of the metrics that we developed at that particular time. As a water and sewer commissioner, I helped to implement electronic meter reading and billing. We participated as interveners in the Northern Pass case. I was part of the design and construction of the septic receiving station. We increased revenues significantly from septic receiving while I was a commissioner. We also implemented DIS, computerized maintenance management, and asset management while I was there. I think that being a trustee is an important responsibility now, especially in these times of economic uncertainty. And I think the Scribner Trust is extremely important because the trust takes care of the building that houses the library, which is one of our most important assets in town, and it's also a very important piece of architecture in the town. And there are many challenges there that need to be dealt with, so that's why I would like to be a trustee.
Kathleen has her hand raised.
yes, Kathleen.
I have never worked with Mr. Toth, but I have observed him while he's working. At one time, I was the BOS liaison to the Water and Sewer Commissioner while he was chair. So I was able to observe how he worked with his fellow commissioners. That's very important to me, that we have a group that will work well together. He expressed what I am looking for, the transparency, the willingness to work with other entities, with the library trustees, with the BOS. And he understands municipal regulations and how we do our business.
Anybody else have anything to say? Jamie? Alan?
I'm good.
Okay. We've heard from all three candidates. We have one person that has stated their interest in the one-year position. Mr. Letourneau has said that one or the other. And Mr. Durack has stated that he is interested in the two-year position. Yes, Ms. Newton.
I'd like to nominate Walter Durack for the two-year position as trustee of the trust fund.
I'll second that.
Mr. Durack has been nominated as trustee. Do I hear any further discussion on Mr. Durack? I'm hearing no discussion. We shall go to vote. Mr. Lyford?
Aye.
Mr. Silly?
Aye.
Ms. Newton?
Aye.
Ms. DeWolf?
Aye.
Mr. Badger says aye. Down to two. Do I hear a nomination for the one-year position?
I'll
I'll nominate.
David Toth for the one-year position.
I hear a second. Mr. Silly?
I will nominate Mr. Letourneau.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a nomination for Mr. Letourneau, and we have a nomination. So we'll take one at a time.
Hold on, Eli. No one seconded Kathleen's motion.
No one seconded.
Wait, is Jamie seconding Alan's motion? Or
I think he seconded both.
No, I'll second Alan's motion, please.
The second Alan's motion. Kathleen's motion, I will second.
which one are you going to vote on first?
I made the
Hold on.
first motion.
We will vote on Mr. Toast first. Kathleen DeWolf,
Aye.
Jamie Lyford,
Nay.
Alan Silly,
Nay.
Mr. Badger says aye. So we now have a split.
What does Fran's vote?
Yeah.
Abstain.
Now, let's vote on Mr. Letourneau. Mr. Silly,
Aye.
Mr. Lyford,
Aye.
Ms. DeWolf,
Nay.
Mr. Badger says nay. We are now at 2-2 again.
I'm confused. Why didn't Fran vote?
I'll have to abstain on that one as well.
Okay.
Shall we go through this again?
We're at a crossroads here.
We are.
So,
No. Miss DeWolf.
We need a quorum. So right now we have a quorum with Amanda Loud and Walter Durack. Should we continue the opening until we find a candidate that will get a majority vote?
yeah, all right.
It's
Kathleen,
imperative that we need to move the business forward. We need checks to be signed. There's a process to, that has to be done with the bank, and it is not in the best interest of the town to hold this up. We have a quorum of 2. Business needs to get done.
yeah, I was gonna say, does the board just need a little bit more time to think about this one with these 2 applicants? Maybe Mr. Letourneau can get you his resume, and we talk at the next meeting.
On the 15th, yes.
Sound good, Bob?
Sounds wonderful. I appreciate that. Thank you.
So that being said, Amanda has paperwork that needs to be facilitated. Perhaps she can be asked, since she's available right now, so the board knows exactly what needs to be put into place.
I'll swear Mr.
Easy.
Durack in. Just let me, Mr. Durack,
Yes, sir.
do you, Walter Durack, solemnly and sincerely swear and affirm that you will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all the duties incumbent upon you as a town trustee according to the best of your abilities, agreeable to the rules and regulations of the Constitution and the laws of the state of New Hampshire? So help you God.
I do.
And this is under pains and penalties of perjury. We're now a town trustee, Mr. Durack.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, members of the board.
Okay. Since we are still,
I have
Yes,
a question. I have a question, sir.
okay, Mr.
So
Letourneau?
there are 3 trustees, and you now have 2. Would 2 be considered a quorum so they could get the business done?
Yes. At this time, yes.
That's good news.
Thank you.
Glad to provide the board with a resume.
Yes. Yes, Ms. Loud.
Yeah, I'd like to remind the Board of Selectmen, now that we have a quorum, what I need from the Board of Selectmen is, I'll need the minutes, even the draft minutes of this meeting. I'll need those minutes to document who has come off the Board of Trustees. In other words, that Tom Peters and Mark Ober have resigned. And I need to have that, and that I, Amanda Loud, was elected in March. And those minutes also need to state who has come on the board of the trustees of the trust fund, Walter Durack. And then in addition to those minutes that need to state that, I also need about 6 copies all with wet signatures. You cannot just sign one and go to the copy machine and make 5 copies. I need all 6 to have wet signatures from every Board of Selectmen on it that states the same thing that I just said, that states who has come on to the board, that I was elected in March, that Mark Ober has resigned, that Tom Peters has resigned, and that Walter Durek was appointed, and that the new quorum of trustees of the trust funds at this point in time consists of Amanda Loud and Walter Durek. And I need 6 copies of those, and I need them all with wet signatures. And that is because it isn't just about paying the phone bill at the library, which I called the phone company and they're letting it be late. But it also, and just getting, signatory authority on Meredith Village Savings Bank, but it comes to tracking down. There's about 7 trust funds that the town has. Some, as I mentioned, have been, for lack of a better term, neglected. I mean, the names on them are of trustees who are now dead. So I'm going to need to prove to them with these wet signature, they're all going to want copies with wet signatures, which is why I keep saying, I'm sorry, you're all going to have to find a way to sign 6 times, and get these to me. And I'm going to need them, ASAP. I can't access the dadgum thing. So anyway, but that's what I need. And thank you very much.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Wolf.
So, Mr. Smith, do you know what you need to do?
Amanda needs the minutes, and the minutes need to note who came off the trust funds, Peters and Ober, that Amanda Loud was elected in March, and the board appointed Walter Durek. She needs to sign 6 times.
And they also need to state, I've got all my notes. I talked to Jill White, a long time ago. So that's why I'm referring to these. But anyway, the minutes also need to state who has authority for what, that both Walter and I have authority as trustees of the trust funds to sign for anything. And
in the minutes?
Yes, it needs to say that from the BOS minutes need to say that, to state who has authority to sign on all accounts. And you need to say, like, Amanda Loud can sign on because the problem is there were signatory cards, and Tom Peters had them, and I've got the copies of them. He included them in that envelope that he left, which was very nice, that he wrote up, the pages of everything to do. But unfortunately, because none of that was ever processed after I was elected in March, now he's not. I don't even think Mark Ober was ever processed to sign. I think it was always just. I think they couldn't tell me that. The bank wouldn't tell me anything because I'm not on the account. But anyway, the long and short of it is, because it's a completely new slate with no one remaining, it all has to state very clearly that Walter Durek has permission to sign on, the CRFs for Amanda Loud and the bank checking account. I mean, it's because it's starting off with a completely new slate that it has to be, it's at square one.
Okay. Mr. Smith, do you have that?
Oh, and it needs to be on select board letterhead with the date.
No, that would be Town of Ashland letterhead. We don't have our own.
Okay. And it has to state the date of resignations and, the date of and that those that are who are now existing signatories, and the appointment date of those existing signatories, which would be my election and then today for Walter. And then Walter and I need to have a meeting 48 hours from now and have our own minutes that I can submit as well on top of that.
I don't think that is going to happen. I will do my best to get these minutes written. We have 5 business days.
Sure. And I explained that to the phone company. I said, you're looking at like June 15th, if I'm lucky, to be able to write a check to you. And they said, okay. Although they had to admit that the sob story I gave for why my bill will be late was one that they hadn't heard before.
And I don't know the schedule of the selectmen after they're available. I'm surprised honestly, that this is a lot to put in the minutes. I'm surprised some of this isn't asked of the town clerk, being that it's an elected
Just telling
position.
you what Jill White told me, you know, that it has to, it's just because there's absolutely no one on it right now for the town of Ashland.
Right.
We have no one who can sign.
The resignation letters were given to the clerk.
I have copies of the resignation letter.
Yeah. I think I have most of this, Amanda, and I can certainly put it in a minute.
I don't have a copy of Mark Ober's resignation letter other than a scanned email.
Mr. Wolf,
Could Charlie possibly contact Jill White?
That would probably be a really good idea because it takes the middleman out of it and just make sure that the bank has what the bank needs.
Yeah.
I'd appreciate that.
Would that be, could you do that, Charlie?
I guess. I mean, I think I have all of it. I mean, this is, you know, we can easily put this in the minutes.
Just to make sure all the i's are dotted and the t's are
Right.
crossed, so we can continue to do our business, not continue, to proceed with doing our business.
You
That
say it was
we
Jill White?
cannot do right now.
Jill White?
Bill White.
Jill White. Yeah.
Yes, you already got that, Amanda.
Okay. Thank you.
Got it.
Moving on. Appointment to the Ashland Heritage Commission. Mr. Harville, thank you for waiting.
Yes, sir. Thank you for giving me a chance to address the board. I appreciate it. I'm retired from the military. After I retired from the military, I joined the Foreign Service, and I retired from the Foreign Service in 2017. I love to travel, learn different cultures, learn different heritage of different countries and locations. One of my hobbies is taking old furniture and bringing it, repairing old furniture and other things. So I'm very interested in the Heritage Commission. I have been on I am on the 4th of July board or committee, and I'm open to any questions or anything that wasn't on my application. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Very thorough application. We have questions for Mr. Yes, Mr. Wolf.
John is already on the Heritage Commission.
Yes,
so
he is.
This is a reappointment.
We have, from what I've seen, Mr. Harville has done a good job of being on that committee. I don't know what else we can say about him. Yeah, to his face.
I'll nominate John Harville to be reappointed to the Heritage Commission.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none.
Charlie's got his hand raised.
Charlie has his hand up.
3-year appointment? Or they
It's
just,
a reappointment.
yeah, but I forget. I didn't have it written down.
Yeah, it's 3 years.
I think it's a 3-year.
Yes, it is.
3 years.
Yeah, okay. I'll put that in the motion.
Kathleen,
Aye.
Mr. Silly,
Aye.
Ms. Newton,
Aye.
where'd he go? Mr. Lyford,
Aye.
Mr. Badger says aye. Do I have to go through the appointment process with the oath of office again?
Yes.
Mr. Harville,
Yes, sir.
you've done this before. So, do you, John Harville, solemnly and sincerely swear and affirm that you will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all of the duties incumbent upon you as a, let's get this right, Ashland Heritage Commissioner, according to the best of your abilities, agreeable to the rules and regulations of the Constitution and laws of the state of New Hampshire. So help you God.
I do.
This you do swear under the pains and penalties of perjury.
I do.
Congratulations, Mr. Harville.
Yay.
You are there for another 3 years.
Thank you,
Thank you very
John.
much. Thank you very much.
Moving on. And under old business, we have the Scribner Report. I wondered if your hand would be the first one up, Mr. Wolf.
Before we discuss this, I want to remind the new board members that until a document has been accepted and reviewed at a duly posted BOS meeting, it is not a public document. It is not a document that should be discussed in public. It's not our document until we have accepted it and reviewed it at a meeting. That being said, that this is not definitive, but it's a workable starting point for action. We can amend it in the future. And I'd like to know personally how the rest of the board members felt about this report.
Who wants to be first? I'll go first. I looked over the report. It did have a lot of images, and it did have statements to go with them. It is very basic. And there is more that needs to go into this before it becomes a full-fledged report, the way I would see a report. There should be a remediation section that talks about how to fix the issues that are there. We would have to have somebody else talk about the costs that go along with that. That's it for me. Anyone else want to speak? Hearing none. Is there something we want to? Yes, Mr. Smith.
Are we ready to release it? Because I know Amanda Loud has already asked me, and she's smiling with anticipation and gave us a thumbs up.
It would be I would not release this in the condition that it's in.
Amanda.
I am only one person.
You just give a sad face to those who are just listening.
Yes.
As I said, it's not a definitive report, but a workable starting point for action. we no longer have a building inspector code enforcement team. This gives the Scribners and the library trustees a visual assessment with some pertinent points. Let them begin the process of fleshing it out. Then they can make decisions and come in front of the select board and share those with them. With that being said, I'd like to make a motion that we release this report to the library trustees and to the Scribner trustees.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion?
Without building inspectors, I'm not sure how much more we can do with it. So Kathleen's point is well taken.
Anyone else? Hearing no further discussion, roll call. Ms. DeWolf,
Aye.
Mr. Silly,
Nay.
Ms. Newton,
Aye.
Mr. Lyford,
Nay.
and Mr. Badger says nay. Moving on. Select board items.
I got my hand up.
Yes, Ms. DeWolf.
So, by denying the release of this document, what are our next steps?
Yeah, I was gonna ask that too.
You were.
Mm-hmm.
Because now we have put two groups in a position that what authority do they have to move forward? They can at least see the visual document. They can determine what the next steps are. We aren't in any position to do that.
Yeah, the other thing, Kathleen, is
No.
I'm gonna try to look up real quick. I don't even think it's exempt
What do you mean exempt?
from non-public.
I don't know what you're referring to.
I believe
Why would it be exempt from non-public disclosure? I'm trying to look it up real quick, but I don't really think it's exempt.
Mr. Smith says that we cannot withhold it from the public.
Is that what you're saying, Charlie?
Oh, okay.
I'm looking it up. I'm trying to find the exemption list. I don't really think it might be exempt. It's not exempt. I mean, why would you not?
Nope.
Why would you voted not to release it? What?
Yeah.
What's in there that's maybe personal or private or detrimental, like something to do with favorable towards someone or something with a contract?
Well, point well taken.
Why we all maybe wanted more, would prefer more. That's not in the cards right now. Amanda has her hand raised.
I know she has her hand raised, and I'm not going to call on her.
So exemptions are records of grand and petit juries, master jury list, records of parole pardons. Doesn't pertain to us.
Okay.
Records pertain to internal personnel policies, confidential, commercial.
Fine. Mr. Silly.
Just a comment. I believe it would be very difficult for us to interpret what the building department put forth. There's a lot of leeway, in my opinion, that could be, and there's nothing there that's definite is a subject to interpretation. So therefore, it needs more work.
Ms.
I
Newton,
agree with that.
It is what it is, and I'm not sure we're going to get any better at this point. And if we have no legal basis for withholding it, and I will agree that it's far from perfect, it's not what we wanted, it's what we have, and we should release it and figure out where we go from here.
do I hear a motion to rescind our previous?
I'll make that motion.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Kathleen DeWolf,
Aye.
Alan Silly,
Nay.
Francis Newton,
Aye.
Jamie Lyford,
Nay.
Eli Badger says aye. We'll release the report such as it is with no qualifications on it. No. Okay, Amanda, what do you want to say? Can you keep it down to 15 words?
We have met with the library trustees, and our goal is the Scribner trustees to come before the Board of Selectmen probably in September with a comprehensive plan, perhaps a 3 to 5 year plan, emphasis on the 3-year, on what to do about the Scribner building in light of the depletion of the Scribner Trust. Costs involved both on a yearly maintenance of the building as well as perhaps larger scale maintenance. I already know about the roof just from being on the board for the past year. So I'm just saying there's only so much money. It is growing, but we're spending it. So it's not growing because we're spending it. So at any rate, that is our game plan. We are going to come before the BOS so that the BOS, the library trustees, and Scribner can all work together. Scribner will lay the first card in the game with a comprehensive plan.
Ms. DeWolf,
So Charlie, you will forward the document to the library trustees and to the Scribner trustees, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
moving on to select board items. Governor's Office for Emergency Relief and Recovery, grant application and acceptance of the unanticipated revenue. Mr. Smith.
Yes, this is mine or ours. The state received $1.25 billion in federal funding for COVID-19 pandemic. Of that amount, 40 million is for municipalities. And in particular, 32 million to local government and 8 million to counties. Essentially, these are funds that where towns might have unanticipated expenses, clearly things that we didn't see coming because of the pandemic. For example, I've seen a full range of municipalities purchasing items for things for the front office when people come in, from, automatic paper towel dispensers. The PD bought a computer because they can't be in the court anymore. The court's closed and you have to do it through offsite through Zoom like we're doing here. So these are any expenses that might have occurred between March, and it runs actually through till September. Now, with that being said, we only have a certain amount that's allocated to us. It's based off of population. This is from 2018's population. We had 2,998 residents. That equals 0.15% of the state's population. This equals 49,501 that is allocated to the town. Now, that doesn't mean we're getting all of it. They're not just going to give us $49,000. We have to apply through the grant. We have to show them our expenses and get approved. That's what I asked for 2 votes. One to designate me to sign on behalf of the town and to apply. And the second one is to just accept now. We'll accept the unanticipated revenue now. This is per RSA 3195B.
Do I hear a motion? Yes, Fran.
I'll make a motion to appoint Charlie, Mr. Smith, as our, to sign off on the grant, but I do have a question. Can you also include lost revenue? For example, we lost revenue just recently for the beach and for the summer camp. You can't do that. Okay. But in that case, my motion stands. I will.
We're still asking. We're hoping, Fran.
Yep.
And yeah, the state hasn't came around on that yet.
Okay.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Kathleen DeWolf,
Aye.
Alan Silly,
Aye.
Francis Newton,
Aye.
Jamie Lyford,
Aye.
Eli Badger says aye. Second part. Do I hear a motion on the second part of his statement?
I'll make that motion.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Kathleen DeWolf,
Aye.
Alan Silly,
Aye.
Francis Newton,
Aye.
Jamie Lyford,
Aye.
Eli Badger says aye. Both pass. Enjoy your newfound authority.
Thanks.
Moving on, non-public.
No, I have something.
Oh, you do?
Yes, sir, I do.
Wolf.
I would like to work on the vendor hawker permit. It's severely outdated. To be proactive, we already have a template in place that we had vetted by legal for the 4th of July. So if Mr. Smith can pull that up, we can discuss if that's acceptable. We've already had in the past year, if the former board members remember, twice somebody applied to sell tacos, and we realized at that time how outdated this document was. So I would like to have us review it and make sure we have one up to date and be proactive. That's it.
Charlie.
So you want me to send you the one that I have now, or do you want me to work with legal on a new one?
Well, when you review the ones for the food vendors that were going to be at the 4th of July, we could use that as a template. The thing we probably need to discuss is where they could park. Because I believe it was Memorial Park and Pleasant Street. Those were the only 2 areas. And we had an applicant last year that wanted to park outside of the old insurance building. So we ought to have this in place so we're prepared in the future with an up-to-date document.
Okay, I'll send you the permit that we have.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Any other board member have something?
Do you need this
I
on the
do.
agenda, or do you need first week in July?
July.
Okay.
Unless somebody else has anything to say about it. Fran, you do recall that we had the application for to sell the tacos, and we realized
Yeah.
how poor that document was, and we really had very little to work with.
Yeah, I agree, Kathleen. There was some stuff in there that seemed dated. You know, I think we asked for social security numbers and stuff for the
Yeah,
people.
at one point, and Fran probably remembers this, Patsy pulled some ordinances that needed to be reviewed. And the board got through quite a few of them, but there was some, then it kind of felt, got pushed aside for other things that needed to be attended. So I came across this in my paperwork when I was organizing and thought this could probably be a good time to work on this document before we had somebody request.
Put it on the project list, Charlie.
Yes.
Right, I wrote. Then no. Not everyone has the camera. Good thing, huh?
Doesn't mean they can't see you.
You can't see me look stupid.
No comment.
Anything else?
I do, Eli.
Yes, Jamie.
We know the last board meeting, we talked about opening the town hall up and putting the proper precautions and some rules.
Yeah.
I'd like to know the status of that and if it's possible to open the town office to the public with the proper safety precautions and plexiglass for our employees by June 8th or June 15th.
Mr. Wolf.
Charlie, didn't you say you had a phone call?
Yep.
Is it-
June 3rd, I have an NHMA and Primex webinar about opening up the town offices.
And perhaps you can report to us at our next meeting and we can come up with a plan.
Yep, that's the plan.
Anything else, Jamie?
No, that's it.
Moving on. Non-public. So
Okay, I got the forms ready.
you got the forms ready. We're going into non-public. There'll be
Yeah, you're good.
for 91A3 A-2A,
Yes.
and which is the first one. And I am, yes, isn't it?
I'll make a motion to go into non-public according to RSA 91A, whatever it is, small letter A, 91A:3, Roman numeral 2, small letter A.
Okay. I am going to move people out of here.
We need a second and a vote.
Mhm.
Do I hear a second? I will second it. Any further discussion? No discussion. Roll call vote. Ms. DeWolf. Mr. Silly.
Aye.
Ms. Newton.
Aye.
Mr. Lyford.
Aye.
Ms. DeWolf again.
Kathleen.
Unmute yourself.
Yes,
There we
yes,
go.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm sorry, my cat distracted me. Aye.
Okay.
He wants to sit in my lap.
Okay. So